My name's Gary Casham. I'm the account executive for Western Australia for Snowflake. We're a cloud data platform that runs across all the major clouds, in particular AWS and Azure here in Australia. So we work across both commercial and public sector in making organisations more data driven. I'll certainly sort of tackle this from a couple of areas. So typically, we see technology, process and people. I think now with the ubiquity and availability of cloud services, technology is the easy bit. Technology is a very low barrier to entry now, but I think the biggest challenge facing government is finding people with the right skills. It's all right having the right technology, but if you don't have the people, and also if your processes are too bureaucratic in terms of how you procure and buy those services, that's the two challenges. So people finding people with the skills and talent, and I think Snowflake, with our platform, we remove a lot of the complexity of having to find people with these deep engineering skills to manage data. So we've got a really good story to tell for our public sector customers. But certainly in the procurement space, I think there's a lot of challenges around policy, legislation, contracts, procurement. I think a lot of that needs to be worked on to make sort of the passage to getting access to these technologies a lot easier. It's a great question. So like, for example, we're currently working with a WA government agency and actually selling them the technology, providing a solution to a couple of their challenges has been the easy part, but it's actually the contractual and the procurement process that's been a big blocker. That's sort of slowed down the time to value. I'm not a specialist in that area, so unfortunately I don't really have an answer, but I think certainly in having maybe having a central government body that actually manages the contractual process and being able to potentially have one standard contract that could be managed by a single government entity that could then make that contract available for all the government agencies. So that particular agency doesn't have to use their own legal and procurement people to keep going through the process several times. I think that'd make it a lot easier. I'll tackle that from a data lens. I think, we work in sort of an age where data needs to be made accessible, it needs to be made available, it needs to be open. But I think at the moment, with the way that government's structured, both politically and legislatively, getting access to data that can be shared across multiple government entities is a real challenge. I think Snowflake has got a really, really unique value proposition in this area, in the fact that we've got a unique data sharing capability where a single entity could have their data stored in Snowflake and they could provision those data assets out to multiple entities. So Snowflake data sharing will help to or enable government agencies to share and collaborate their data more easily. We're also taking that concept to the next level with the Snowflake Data Exchange, where you can actually get access to public data access, but also have private data assets that could be readily shared across a private data ecosystem. There's some of the capabilities that Snowflake's bringing to the table in the public sector. I think the technology's there, but the policy and the legislation isn't quite there. So I do know that the WA Office of Digital Government are actually starting to develop policy and legislation in this area. I do know that the Chief Data Officer is totally focused in this domain. So hopefully once the policy and legislation's in place, it's when the technology vendors can really bring some unique capability to the table. I think certainly in the area of data, I think outside of just purely the technology itself, I think it's more enabling people. So going back to sort of the skill shortage, absolutely, certainly in Perth, we've got a chronic skill shortage, certainly in the data space. I think there's two elements to that. I think there's a couple of other technologies that have typically been required to manipulate, transform, engineer data, whereas what Snowflake's got is a really simple and easy to use platform that takes a lot of that complexity away from our customers. But I think in the data literacy domain, I think both from a very senior executive level right through to people at the ground floor, they have to become more data literate. So I think enabling some sort of collaboration between the private sector, the university's education, actually putting data and data skills on the curriculum, and actually having people coming out of university that are literate and skilled in data is critically important. But then making sure that data is only good if you can get insight out of the data. But if you've got senior executives that don't know how to read and understand data, it's useless. So I would encourage executives that want to be data driven, that want to get insights out of data. They need to learn and understand how to get insight out of data. I think as we move forward, certainly both in WA but also in ANZ, I think the public sector is going to be more critically important for our growth. So we're very encouraged to work with organisations like yourself. It's been great to connect with some key government agencies here today. I have mentioned that we're just starting to get a couple of pilot projects going here in WA. We've got a couple of high-profile opportunities, and once those stories start to get out there, I think our brands will start to elevate. Couple of takeaways for me through discussions is that yes, there is a chronic skills shortage. Yes, we need to become more data literate, and see, it's that data is now on the strategic agenda for government, and they understand that we need to become more data driven.